You are looking at a grocery receipt, but what you are actually seeing is a crime scene. The numbers at the bottom are not prices, they are a countdown. The comfortable illusion of the middle class is built on a fragile logistical chain that is currently snapping, link by link. When the trucks stop, the city starves in 3 days. This is not a theory, this is a historical constant. From the siege of Leningrad to the collapse of Venezuela, the first casualty of economic warfare is always the picky eater. While the masses panic over the price of ribeye and boneless, skinless chicken breasts, the survivor looks elsewhere. The survivor looks at the blood, the guts, and the weeds. Hunger is not a sensation, it is your body beginning to cannibalize itself. Before the shelves are stripped bare and the currency becomes worthless paper, establish your perimeter. Leave a like to signal that you are preparing while others sleep. Subscribe if you possess the will to digest the hard truth when the comfort food runs out. Comment below. What is the current price of a dozen eggs in your area? This data point is more valuable than any government report. The Consumer Price Index is a statistical manipulation designed to keep you calm while your purchasing power evaporates. Government bureaus strip out food and energy costs from core inflation because those represent the volatile reality you actually live in. The reality is that the era of cheap, energy-intensive muscle meat is over. The agricultural complex can no longer sustain the conversion rate of grain to beef required to feed a population that demands steak for dinner. You are entering a period of caloric austerity. The laws of thermodynamics do not care about your culinary preferences. Energy cannot be created or destroyed, but it can become too expensive for you to buy. To survive the coming economic winter, you must assassinate your ego. You must stop eating for pleasure and start eating for cellular respiration. You must adopt the wartime diet today, while these items are still viewed as waste by the ignorant majority. The first line of defense against malnutrition is the very thing the modern consumer discards. We begin with organ meats, specifically the heart and the liver. For decades, the industrial food complex has trained you to find these cuts repulsive. This is a psychological operation designed to sell premium cuts at a premium markup, while the most nutrient-dense portions of the animal are ground into pet food. This is a strategic error you can no longer afford. In a survival scenario, you need maximum nutrient density per gram. Muscle meat is largely protein and water. Liver is nature's multivitamin. From a biochemical standpoint, the liver is a powerhouse. It contains retinol, the bioavailable form of vitamin A that plants cannot provide efficiently. It is loaded with heme iron, which is absorbed by the human body at a rate significantly higher than the non-heme iron found in spinach or lentils. When the supply chains fail, anemia will be a silent killer. Lethargy will be your death sentence. You cannot defend your home or forage for resources if your blood cannot transport oxygen efficiently. The liver solves this logistical problem. Then there is the heart. The heart is a muscle, but it is a muscle that never rests, making it dense with coenzyme Q10. This compound is essential for mitochondrial function, the generation of adenosine triphosphate, or ATP. ATP is the currency of life. Without it, your cells stop functioning. In a grid-down scenario or a hyperinflationary depression, you will be working harder physically than you ever have in your life. You will need every molecule of ATP you can generate. While your neighbors are fighting over the last package of ground beef, the heart and liver often sit untouched in the butcher's case, sold for pennies on the dollar. This price discrepancy is your temporary advantage. The taste is the barrier you must breach. The metallic tang of liver is the taste of minerals. It is the taste of survival. You do not eat it as a steak, you treat it as a supplement. You grind the heart and liver and mix it with cheaper fillers. You use heavy spices, not to be gourmet, but to mask the gamey flavor that signals decomposition to the untrained brain. You are not cooking for a dinner party. You are fueling a biological machine. If you cannot stomach the heart of an animal, you will not have the stomach for what comes next. The second pillar of the wartime diet is the humble lentil. In the hierarchy of survival foods, lentils sit at the apex of the cost-to-benefit ratio. Unlike beans, which require massive amounts of fuel and water to soak and boil for hours, lentils cook quickly. In a situation where fuel is scarce, where propane is a luxury and electricity is intermittent, the cooking time of a food source becomes a critical variable. Every minute your stove is running is a minute of fuel reserves depleted. Efficiency is the only metric that matters. Lentils are also a complete protein when paired correctly, but their true value lies in their shelf stability and caloric density. A dry sack of lentils can last indefinitely if kept away from moisture and pests. They mimic the texture of ground meat when seasoned and cooked down, providing a psychological anchor to the meals you used to enjoy. But do not be fooled. This is not about comfort. This is about nitrogen. Lentils fix nitrogen in the soil, making them cheap to grow, and they fix protein in your body, repairing the muscle tissue you tear down during the daily struggle of a collapsed economy. They are the fuel of the peasant and the soldier alike. History proves this. Roman legions marched on grain and lentils. The poor of Victorian England survived on pulse stews. When the currency collapses, the price of imported goods skyrockets first. Anything that requires refrigeration will disappear or become the domain of the ultra-rich. The lentil requires neither. It waits in the dark, dry corners of your pantry, a dormant energy source ready to be deployed when the fresh food supply lines are severed. However, a diet of pure protein and fiber is fatal without energy. This brings us to the carbohydrate filler, but we must abandon the expensive, polished white rice of the modern era. We must look to the root and the tuber mixed with broken rice. We must look to the root and the tuber mixed with broken rice. In times of economic collapse, polished white rice becomes a currency, traded by the gram like gold dust. To consume it pure is a sign of reckless extravagance. The survivalist dilutes this precious commodity with the starch of the earth. Cassava, potatoes, and yams are not merely vegetables. They are underground batteries storing solar energy in the form of complex carbohydrates. When the supply trucks stop running, the potato remains hidden beneath the soil, invisible to the looter who scans the horizon for livestock or smoke. You must learn the art of the extender. By mashing boiled tubers into your rice, you effectively double the volume of your caloric intake without depleting your strategic grain reserve. This is not culinary innovation, this is historical necessity. During the Great Depression and the famine periods of the 20th century, this mixture kept entire populations from the brink of starvation. The texture will be heavy and the taste will be monotonous, but your stomach will be full. The biological imperative here is glycogen. Your brain consumes roughly 20% of your daily energy expenditure. Without sufficient glucose from carbohydrates, your cognitive functions decline. You become irritable, your decision-making slows, and in a high-stakes survival environment, a split-second delay in processing information is the difference between life and death. The combination of rice and tubers provides a steady, albeit unexciting, release of glucose into the bloodstream, preventing the hypoglycemic crashes that lead to fatal errors in judgment. However, carbohydrates and protein are useless without the dense energy of fat. This brings us to the fourth item, the one that the modern medical establishment has spent 50 years demonizing: lard. Vegetable oils are a product of industrial processing, requiring massive refineries, chemical solvents like hexane, and global shipping networks. When the grid goes down, the production of soybean and canola oil halts immediately. Furthermore, these oils go rancid quickly when exposed to heat and light, turning into toxic sludge that inflames your cellular membranes. You cannot rely on a fuel source that degrades in the bottle. Lard, the rendered fat of a pig, is shelf-stable for months, even years if processed and stored correctly. It is the ultimate survival superfood. A single gram of fat contains 9 calories, compared to only 4 calories for protein or carbohydrates. When you are hauling water, chopping wood, or patrolling your perimeter in freezing temperatures, you are burning energy at a rate that lettuce and lean chicken cannot replenish. You need the density of animal fat. Historically, lard was prized above muscle meat. The pioneers and soldiers of the past knew that lean meat leads to rabbit starvation, a condition where the body consumes its own protein reserves because it cannot metabolize the meat without dietary fat. The modern consumer trims the fat and throws it away. The survivor hoards the fat like precious metal. You will use it to cook. You will add it to your lentil stew to boost the calorie count. And in desperate times, you will eat it straight. It lubricates the machinery of your metabolism and provides the cholesterol necessary for the production of testosterone and cortisol, the hormones that drive aggression and stress response. You will need both. The final item on the list requires you to step outside the grocery store entirely and look at the ground you walk on. Urban foraging. Weeds are the invisible pantry of the city. While the uneducated masses fight over the last wilting head of lettuce in the supermarket, the survivor harvests the dandelion, the purslane, and the nettle growing in the cracks of the pavement. These are not weeds. These are pioneer species. They are biologically designed to thrive in hostile environments, pushing through concrete and compacted soil to reach the sun. Because of this struggle, they are packed with phytonutrients at concentrations far higher than the domesticated, genetically modified spinach found in the produce aisle. Dandelion greens are a diuretic and a liver tonic, essential for flushing out the toxins that build up during periods of physical stress and poor diet. Purslane contains the highest amount of omega-3 fatty acids of any leafy vegetable. You are walking past a pharmacy every day and calling it a nuisance. The danger here is not the plant, but the poison the city sprays on it. You must learn to identify the spray zones. Look for wilting, yellowing edges on otherwise healthy plants, or the telltale blue dye of herbicide. You must wash these greens aggressively, or, better yet, harvest them from abandoned lots where the landscaping crews have long since ceased their operations. Now we must address the psychology of consumption. The list is useless if you cannot force yourself to eat it. The modern palate is an addict, hooked on high-fructose corn syrup, artificial flavor enhancers, and the perfect balance of salt and fat engineered by food scientists. When you switch to a diet of boiled organs, mashed tubers, and bitter weeds, your brain will rebel. You will experience food depression. This is a genuine psychological state where the lack of dopamine response from food leads to a loss of appetite, even in the face of hunger. You must kill your ego. You are no longer a consumer with preferences. You are a biological engine requiring inputs. The meal is not a social event. It is a maintenance pit stop. Flavor is the luxury of the peacetime economy. In the wartime economy, the only flavor is the taste of not dying. Do not try to make the liver taste like steak. It will fail and you will be disappointed. Instead, mask the flavor with aggressive seasoning if you have it. Garlic powder, dried chili, heavily salted broths. If you do not have spices, you must dissociate. View the food as medication. You do not chew a pill for the flavor, you swallow it for the effect. Adopt this mindset now. Practice fasting for 24 hours and then break your fast with a bowl of unseasoned lentils. Hunger is the best seasoning, and soon it may be the only one you have. This brings us to the strategic preparation of these items. You cannot simply buy them. You must integrate them into a system of rotation and concealment. A pile of canned goods is a target. A garden of weeds is invisible. A garden of weeds is invisible. While the starving mob loots the canned goods aisle, risking violence for a tin of beans, you can quietly harvest your calories from the cracks in the sidewalk. But acquisition is only the first step. The true test of the survivor is the preparation. You must master the thermodynamics of cooking, not for flavor, but for caloric retention and operational security. You must abandon the frying pan. Frying is a wasteful act of the privileged. When you sear meat, you are volatilizing fat and sending precious calories into the air as smoke. This is a tactical error on two fronts. First, you are losing energy that your body needs to maintain its core temperature. Second, the smell of cooking fat is a beacon. In a starvation scenario, the scent of bacon or frying liver can travel for hundreds of yards, alerting every hungry predator in the vicinity that you have resources. To cook with open flame and aromatic oil is to invite a siege. The solution is the stew. The stew is the universal strategy of the wartime kitchen because it is a closed system. You throw the organ meats, the lentils, the chopped tubers, and the lard into a single pot with water. You bring it to a boil and then cover it tight. Every gram of fat that renders out of the meat is trapped in the liquid. Every vitamin that leaches out of the vegetables is captured in the broth. You drink the water, you eat the solids, and you consume 100% of the energy you have gathered. Nothing escapes the pot. Furthermore, boiling softens the tough fibers of the heart and the fibrous weeds, making them easier to digest. Digestion consumes energy. If your body has to work too hard to break down raw or tough food, your net caloric gain decreases. You are essentially pre-digesting your food with heat. This is bioengineering at the kitchen table. Now we must discuss the one element that makes this slurry of organs and weeds palatable: sodium chloride. You likely underestimate salt because it is currently cheap and ubiquitous. You treat it as a flavor enhancer. This is a fatal misunderstanding. Salt is an electrolyte essential for life. It regulates fluid balance, nerve transmission, and muscle contraction. In a survival situation where you are sweating from exertion and drinking untreated water, hyponatremia is a real threat. A lack of salt will kill you faster than a lack of food. But its value in the kitchen is even greater. Salt cures, salt preserves, salt masks the taste of decay. When the power grid fails and your freezer turns into a warm box of rotting meat, salt is the only thing that can save your stockpile. You must learn to pack your organ meats in salt, drying them into jerky or curing them like ham. This extends their shelf life from days to months without electricity. Salt is the anchor of civilization, and it will be the anchor of your survival. If you cannot stomach the taste of the liver and lentil stew, you are suffering from what psychologists call appetite fatigue. This is the psychological wall where the brain, bored by the repetition of flavor and texture, signals the body to stop eating even though you are starving. This is the mechanism that kills castaways who have supplies but refuse to eat them. You must weaponize hunger against your own mind. Do not eat on a schedule. The concept of breakfast, lunch, and dinner is a cultural construct of the Industrial Revolution designed to time-manage factory workers. In the wild, animals eat when they catch prey. You are now an animal. If the stew tastes repulsively bland, you are not hungry enough. Fast for 24 hours. Fast until your stomach cramps and your hands shake. At that point, a bowl of unseasoned boiled heart and dandelion greens will taste like the finest meal you have ever experienced. Hunger is the only seasoning you can rely on. This requires a complete destruction of your current culinary identity. You are likely accustomed to variety, to texture, to the interplay of sweet and sour. You must mourn the death of these sensations now, before the collapse. Start practicing monotony drills. Eat the same meal of rice and beans for 3 days straight. Observe your emotional reaction. Observe the anger, the irritability, the craving for sugar. This is your addiction leaving the body. You must break this addiction while the grocery stores are still open, so that when they close, you are not fighting your own withdrawal symptoms while trying to secure water. The final component of this strategy is the rotation of stock. You cannot simply buy 50 pounds of lard and lentils and leave them in the basement. Fats go rancid, weevils infest grain, rats smell protein. You must eat what you store and store what you eat. This is the principle of first in, first out. If you are not currently cooking with lard and organ meats, you are not prepared. You are merely hoarding future garbage. Start integrating these wartime foods into your diet tonight. Replace one meal a week with the liver stew. Learn how your body reacts. Does it give you gas? Does it give you energy? Adjust the ratios. Maybe you need more starch to balance the fat. Maybe your digestion requires more cooked greens. You must calibrate your biological machine now, in the safety of peace, rather than testing a new fuel source in the middle of a crisis. You do not test your parachute after you have jumped out of the plane. The economy is a complex system, and like all complex systems, it is prone to sudden, catastrophic failure. The signals are flashing red. The price of cattle feed is up. The cost of fertilizer is up. The transportation networks are straining. The cheap meat you see in the supermarket today is the last of the inventory being liquidated before the price reset. When that reset happens, the steak becomes a memory, and the liver becomes a luxury. If you wait until the news declares a shortage, you are already too late. The herd will panic. They will strip the shelves of the easy calories, the bread, the chips, the pasta. They will leave the hearts and the lard because they do not know how to use them. This is your window of opportunity, but it is a window that is closing fast. The time to acquire the taste for survival is not when you are starving. It is right now. The time to acquire the taste for survival is not when you are starving. It is right now. This brings us to the final calculation. The list of 5 foods, organ meats, lentils, rice mixed with tubers, lard, and urban weeds, is not merely a grocery list. It is a declaration of independence from a failing system. The modern supermarket is a cathedral of fragility. It is a monument to the temporary abundance of cheap oil and global stability. When you walk through those automatic doors, you are entering a hallucination. You see endless rows of colorful boxes, fresh produce from 3 continents, and perfectly butchered meat. But the survivor sees the truth. The survivor sees a logistical chain that is stretched to the breaking point. The intricate network of trucks, ships, and refrigeration units that keeps this illusion alive is operating on razor-thin margins. A single disruption in the Strait of Hormuz, a cyber attack on the power grid, or a hyperinflationary spike in the currency, and the cathedral goes dark. The shelves will not just be empty, they will be the battleground of the desperate. Civilization is only 3 missed meals away from anarchy. By adopting the wartime diet today, you are effectively opting out of this vulnerability. You are telling the agricultural-industrial complex that you do not need their processed corn syrup, their soy fillers, or their chemically washed chicken. You are building a metabolic fortress. While the masses panic because they cannot find their favorite brand of cereal, you will be calmly rendering lard and boiling lentils. You will have the psychological advantage because you have already killed your ego. You have already accepted that food is fuel, not entertainment. This shift in perspective is your greatest weapon. The neighbors will be paralyzed by the shock of the new reality. The sudden drop in their standard of living will break their spirits before hunger even sets in. The human brain is wired to resist a decline in status. When the steak is replaced by the rat, or the imported cheese is replaced by the dandelion, the average consumer will experience a profound existential crisis. Depression will kill them faster than malnutrition. You, however, will have inoculated yourself against this despair. You will have already trained your palate to appreciate the iron taste of the heart and the bitter crunch of the weed. You will have already normalized the aesthetic of austerity. When the crash comes, it will not be a shock to your system. It will be a validation of your preparation. You will look at your bowl of stew not with disgust, but with gratitude. You will understand that in a world of starving people, calories are the only currency that cannot be devalued. The laws of thermodynamics dictate that entropy always increases. Systems tend toward disorder. The global economy is a high-energy system that requires constant input to maintain its order. As energy becomes expensive and resources become scarce, that order will collapse into chaos. This is not a political opinion. This is physics. The energy required to bring a banana from Ecuador to your table in December will no longer exist. The energy required to raise a cow on grain for 2 years solely for its ribeye will no longer be justifiable. We are returning to the historical mean. For 99% of human history, our ancestors ate organs, tubers, and weeds. The last 50 years of abundance were an anomaly, a blip on the radar of time fueled by the burning of ancient carbon. That fire is burning out. The smoke is clearing, and what is left is the hard reality of survival. Do not wait for the government to issue a rationing card. Do not wait for the news anchor to tell you that the food supply is critical. The warning signs are already visible in the rising prices, the shrinking package sizes, and the subtle changes in ingredients. The system is cannibalizing itself to maintain the illusion of normalcy for just 1 more quarter. You must stop eating the illusion. Go to the butcher today. Ask for the parts that others throw away. Go to the bulk store. Buy the sacks of grain that the wealthy ignore. Walk your neighborhood. Learn the names of the plants that grow in the cracks of the concrete. Build your stockpile, but more importantly, build your resilience. The feast is over. The lights are flickering. The winter is coming. Eat accordingly.